of things that I would believe that you should compromise on. Maybe kids. Oh, there's no reason for you to say I want 3 kids. You say I want 3 kids, and they say I want 4. If there's no reason, like, if there's no big deal to why you can't go 4,
Well, and that's where you get into the idea of like compromising.
yeah. So that's
Can
compromise.
the two parties compromise?
Exactly.
Are you willing to make this work? Because it really doesn't matter if, for example, you don't want kids and he wants kids. If he's willing to compromise, maybe you can make that work. It.
All
So,
right.
my name is Adam. I'm a leadership coach of over a decade of experience in mental health and addictions, and I've helped many individuals build not only personal relationships at work, but also within their personal life.
Hey.
I'll open it to you.
Okay, and my name is Evelyn. Been doing this for a while, over 7 years, and I'm a matchmaker, and I'm also I'll call myself a love coach and into singles event. And I'm so excited that we're doing this again. I'm Adam, and I'm sure you guys are going to have fun. So let's get into it.
All right, let's rock and roll. I think for our first topic, we are going to discuss red flags. Why? Because I was just on TikTok and I was watching people talk about red flags, and I'm like, I, I don't think these are red flags. I think this is just trauma. Like, what?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of people actually confuse red flag to, a lot of people are pretty, a lot of people out there, trying to figure out relationship, and they tend to tag everything as red flag. And that's why we want to talk about it more. So if you're not very sure what is red flag, what is preference, what is, we're going to answer all your questions today.
Well, that's where I kind of want to start is what is a red flag at the end of the day?
Yes,
In
right.
your personal practice, what would you define a red flag to be?
I think I was actually talking to a friend and we talked about red flag actually. So I think for me, the way I see red flag is, especially with the kind of client that I work with, I think you should have like you should have like a list of what you're looking for in a partner, right? And sometimes, for example, I'm just going to give an example to illustrate. Let's say you are a faith person and you like to, and then you have someone that, oh, let's use this one. Let's say you smoking is something that you're not into, right? For
But
you and
smoking's so cool.
right, for some people, yeah. I think red flag is something that doesn't work well with you. Like it's something that would take away your peace or take away um like it won't sit right with you in the long run. You know that with this red flag, I would either be unhappy, resent this person, or um I'm not basically living the life I would like to live in a relationship. Basically, if they smoke, so I don't think that would be is a red flag to you because you're not into that. And anything that doesn't align with your values and stuff like that could be a red flag to you. It doesn't have to be, I don't see it as, it doesn't have to be negative, right? Like it doesn't have to be negative. It could just be, I see it as something like outside of your um I'll say specification, if that makes sense. Like this is what I'm looking for. This is doesn't fit into what I'm looking for, and that's a red flag for me. So I think it's different for different people. So for me now, I would say someone that smokes could be a red flag for me. I could say someone that is abusive. Abusive is generic, so what am I talking about? Then that could be a red flag for me. So it's just based on my preference. So I know a lot of people, it's not general, but there's some things that is general, right? Like someone that is abusive, that breaks things when they're angry. I don't think anybody likes that, right? So that could be a generic general red flag for people, but sometimes it's just specific, you know to individuals. That's my.
Well, well, and what I usually think of when I think of red flags are deal breakers. Like this is not going to work at all. Usually because of maybe the individual treating, for example, waiting staff poorly. And it's like, oh, that's a red flag because if they're treating the waiting staff poorly, they might treat me poorly down the road.
Correct.
Or another great red flag I often see is drug addiction. It's like, I can't date somebody who's an alcoholic, who's smoking meth, all
Mm,
that fun jazz, because if they're doing that in their personal life, they're going to do that with me. And I don't want that kind of life.
Exactly.
But there's almost this issue of the difference between a red flag and a standard, you know?
Mm,
Where it's like one of my standards might be I don't want anybody that smokes weed, but that's not necessarily a red flag. Like just because somebody smokes weed doesn't mean they're going to be a bad mate.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just that, and that's why I say it is personal, right? It is specific to people. So, smoke red flag is not like you're a bad person, right? It's just that we don't just align. So if someone smokes weed, there are a lot of people that like to smoke weed. There are a lot of couples that like to smoke weed together. So for them, they won't even want. They would prefer someone that smokes over someone that is a non-smoker, right? So that's not a red flag to them. But for me, because I'm also thinking about I want my partner, I want to have a long life with my partner. So I'm thinking about I don't want a partner where maybe one day might have like lungs infection, some kind of infection, or die young because of smoking, or I don't want that exposure to my family or my kids. So I'm thinking beyond just now. So red flag is different. So red flag doesn't mean a person is a bad person. I don't see it like that. I just see that, oh, we don't just align. So if I'm just going to say green flag as, oh, this person matches what I'm looking for in a partner, that's a green flag. It's kind of like a check. Yeah, but red flag could be, no, that's not it. Or we don't have the same faith. We don't have the same beliefs. For me, it is a red flag, right? So
Well,
it's
that's so interesting because for me, I don't see that as a red flag. Like I see it like we're not compatible. Like if your faith is very important to you and it's not so important to me, oh, we're just not compatible. But I don't see that necessarily as like a red flag of, oh my God, I should run away from this person and never talk to them again.
I think you should never. Yeah, yeah. That's it. I think it's the way you look at it. Because, for example, when I ask my clients, "What are your deal breakers?" So those are the things they'll list. They'll be like, someone that is maybe a Muslim, you know, someone that smokes, So those are the things. So I think it's just a term that someone came up with. Red flag.
Well, right?
That's a fact. So it's just someone came up with the name red flag. So red flag could also be similar, could mean something similar. It could be the same thing as, deal breaker. It could be the same thing as, I don't think red flag means run away from the person, right? For me, what I always see red flag is, it's just something that doesn't, it's personal. I feel like it's personal. And it doesn't mean the person is bad, right? There are some general red flags that is bad. An abusive person is bad. So abusive in terms of maybe is always destroying things when they're angry. Nobody wants that, right? So that is very bad. And there's some ones that is just like, to me, it's a red flag. Not to you, maybe.
Well, I wanna talk a little bit about so abuse because we're talking a little bit about red flags and abuse. And I think a lot of people when they think of abuse, they think of the person that's just physically violent. But
Mhm.
I've met people that are psychologically violent and it's
Yeah.
just as destructive. And I always look for example, if I'm out dating, is the person treating those around them with kindness? How what type of entertainment do they like to engage in? As just more of a way to kind of figure out, do they psychologically manipulate? Are they psychologically abusive? As
Mm,
opposed to the very obvious, well, physical abusive. It's pretty
abuse.
easy to figure out. It's like, oh, you're throwing stuff. Ooh.
Right? Yeah, and I think a physical abuse is common because of, from the women perspective, like, but the mental, the psychological abuse is both ways, right? And a lot of actually physical abuse happening from the women's side to the women being physically abusive to the man, right? It happens, but it's not common. And I think the physical abuse part is common because of, from the woman perspective, maybe that happens from a woman perspective. But a lot of men also are also dealing with mental, right? Emotional abuse, right? And that is not because people don't know how to. I have a friend that would say, she said she left her marriage because the guy was emotionally abusing her. But she couldn't explain it, like, she couldn't really explain how it was. It's difficult to explain or to describe how
Mhm.
that emotional abuse affected her because people could not really understand. And people were like, but with physical abuse, you can easily say, see my hand, my face. So that's the thing. A lot of people are suffering in silence, being in relationship that is abusive, but because they cannot really describe it, with evidence, that kind of thing. Like it's just there in their mind, unless they go commit crazy things, do crazy things like suicide. It's like, oh my God, he's been going through a lot, or he's taking medication, right? So yeah, so I think it's just the way you see it, it's just there, right? But
Yeah, and it's like you almost have to be a detective when it comes to looking for abuse or the red flags around abuse.
yeah.
And like you said, with psychological abuse, it tends to be a little bit more discreet, I
Mm,
find.
yes.
And it's a lot of people that practice it tend to have like almost ways out. So what they'll say is, "Oh, honey, you just stay home and don't go see your friends because I just want to be with you." But
See?
in reality, it's like I'm trying to isolate you from your friends and family. But
Yeah.
then the way out is I love you, and so this isn't abusive. It's like, but you're isolating me.
Yeah, I think I saw a video of a lady. It was on TikTok, and she said, her husband traveled, and she's like, "Oh, she means her husband so much because her husband is her best friend. Her husband is her everything. Her husband is her only friend." And I had to look at the comments. I felt like it's great to have a beautiful relationship where you guys are more like best friend, but it's also important to also to have your life outside of that relationship, so you're not choking each other, right? So it's like, people tend to say, oh, I love you, I want to spend every moment, every minute with you. But please let him go hang out with his friends too. Let him go have boys' night. Let him go out on vacation with the boys. It's different. It's like when girls are hanging out, it's different. We talk about all sorts of things. There's some things you can talk with you can discuss with your man, but you can discuss, like, it's not you're keeping secret, but there's some things that you may not understand, right? But you can understand with your girls, right? So
Well,
I
and this kind of gets into the idea that men and women are fundamentally different. How I communicate with my male friends is very different than how I communicate with my female friends.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think, and that's the thing about saying, when you're married, I hear this thing so much. It's just from what you said, like, you can have the opposite sex friends when you're in a relationship. Just like you said the way you speak with your guys is different, right? From the way you would speak with your girlfriends, and it might even be different from the way you would speak with your wife, because from your friends, girls, you're more like, maybe you say, oh, this thing that my wife is trying to explain to me, something going on, I don't know how to. You can get some input from your friends and say, oh, maybe she said something and you got offended by it. You can say, okay, babe, see, my wife said something to me, I was offended. Is it okay for me to think like that, or was I over exaggerating, was I overdoing it, overreacting? There might be, she's a woman and she just went through a difficult childbirth, the hormone. So some female friend would help you even understand your wife better, right? Because you can, so sometimes I feel like there is use for both. So just from what you just said, is important to. I think it's just weird to say, because you're married. So this is it. It's just like you can have the opposite sex as friends. For me, I think I'm just saying, because why not, right? It's not like it depends. There's boundaries, right?
And I'd make the argument that you should be able to have friends of the opposite sex, but you should also have boundaries and
Yes.
know like where your bread is buttered. At the end of the day, I'm a very loyal man. It's my
Yes.
girlfriend first and foremost. And then if another woman's in my life, we're strictly friends. Full
Yes,
stop.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I need to be strong enough to put those boundaries in place to keep that friendship so then I can keep that loyalty in my relationship going, but
True.
also still have friends of the opposite sex because they do provide a very interesting point of view.
Yeah, I think it's healthy. I think it's also like, if you have a female friend, you want her to be friends with your wife too. They might even be bestie, right? So it's just that transparency, right? And she could have also have guy friends that you guys go out together, hang out together. So it's just healthy. I feel like that balance is healthy. Do you know? And that's what I'm saying. It's healthy. You want healthy life with your partner. You want to be happy, joyful. But when the restrictions are too much, you can't have this. You can, you know, yeah. So we're talking about what came up. We're talking about what were we talking about?
We were talking about red flags and all that fun stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Which
And
is
so
interesting because when somebody has all the go ahead.
like how do you spot abusive partner? Like you said, like how they talk to people when they're angry, how do they react? Right?
Mhm.
Are they always throwing things? Like if someone would break things, I don't know when they will not throw things at you at a point. You know, can they handle their emotions? Like does their emotion get like take over them? Stuff like that. You could sense it through the emotion, right? How they kind of behave like that. And sometimes it could be that what they talk about, like when they're watching a nice movie. I remember someone told me one time, he said he was watching a movie, and in that movie, the guy, when he's upset, he beats his wife, right? And then after that, he will say, "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I was just upset and angry." And the guy was excited saying that. And I'm like, mm-mm-mm. We don't do that here. So, like, you listen to how he talks about things like that. I'd be like, how they, so those are the things like you're picking on how they react about abuse or they see a post about abuse. What is their conversation around it? Are they justifying that abuse or they are like, oh, that is bad? Then you might not give your opinion, but at least you're like, oh, this is wrong, right? This is so bad. And then maybe you could see different angles, but at least what's your first reaction to those things, right? Those
You
are
know,
the
this
things you.
this very much reminds me of one of my male friends. So he was dating a woman and she struggled with emotional regulations.
Mhm.
So when she got angry, she got really angry. And I remember talking to him and he said, "Yeah, so she wanted to go to the Taylor Swift concert and I said I wasn't interested in it, and so I didn't go and she blamed me for the night being ruined. And she got so angry, she threw a knife at me in the kitchen." And I said, "Wait,
Wow.
what?" And he goes, "Don't worry, it missed." And I
Wow.
was like, "You literally were assaulted with a weapon."
Well, that's bad. One day, what if he eats you? One day it will happen, right? And I think that's why I said about having a friend. If your husband doesn't want to go with you, call a friend so you don't have a ruined evening, right? So that's the thing about that balancing relationship where you have your partner. So for me, if I'm talking to someone and you're saying things like, I don't have much friends, I don't have friends, I'm just that's a ref for me. Because I
No,
don't want to be in a relationship with somebody where it's just going to be two of us all the time,
no,
right?
but you're right because typically if somebody has no friends, if they have no family that wants to be with them, they have nobody that wants to hang out with them, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's typically what I usually see is they're either absolute pricks or they're quite abusive or narcissistic or maybe they're a psychopath, who knows, but something's going on there that everyone's sitting there going, I don't want to hang around with this person.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's for me. I'm like, I don't think because that person might actually prevent or limit the way I interact with other people. They might want to just shut a lot of people short. They just want to isolate me as well. I don't want that. And I don't want to be your everything. I don't want to, what I'm saying? Like you cannot be someone's everything. They need the friends to fill in that some void. You need different support system in your life to keep you sane. But if you expect me to be everything like that for you, it can be exhausting,
Yes.
right? Which let's say I want to go visit my friend, you're upset, you're feeling, oh, you're going to leave me by myself. Why? So it's really I would want it's good to have that balance. For me, I think it's some ladies don't like friends too. Maybe they can be a good match. So it may not be a red flag for them, I guess. So so
Well,
some
it's
people.
it's interesting though. So that kind of gets into the next point, which is some red flags I think is just straight trauma. So a fabulous example of this is I was talking with a woman and she said one of the red flags that she looks out for is, does he have a lot of girlfriends? And where that red flag came from was she got continuously cheated on by her boyfriend with these girls that were friends. And so now she has a red flag associated with that.
Yeah, and I think that is understandable, right? Like, because of, she doesn't want to repeat the same pattern again by dating someone similar to who she dated before. So for someone like that, I would say it's very important for her to find someone with less female friends. Because if not, she's just gonna try to always just, I don't know what to say. Like, she would be dealing with a lot of emotion, trying to be around him, testing other people. So she need to avoid. I think that should be the first question. Do you have a lot of girlfriends? Like, oh yeah, I do. Okay, and then see how she interacts with them. It doesn't have boundaries in place, or do they just call him at odd hours, anytime, or they'll just call him and he's gone, you know. So you want to see how he manages those friendship, and if something that he reminds you of is constantly reminding you of the past, where maybe the boundaries wasn't there, or maybe you're just a jealous person in general, like maybe that's something that you may need to work on if it's a youth thing, because even if he has one friend, you might still be jealous. So, but if it's something, if you can't deal with someone, it's just like introverted people that are introverts, right? They would prefer people that are also similar to them. Maybe the outside extrovert guy or person may be too much for them. So to avoid that, just go with what actually matches your energy. It's kind of similar to what so it's not necessarily a red flag to have for a guy to, "But what are you doing with so many friends?" But it's not always a red flag when a man has so many friends. Maybe he has so many sisters in his life, so he relates more with females. Maybe.
Well, and there's a
Something
point
like
here that you said, which was very important, which is there is a point that you have to go get help.
that. Yes, you have to.
Because if you're saying to your partner, you cannot have friends of the opposite gender because in my previous relationships, I got cheated on because of this. I'm sorry, that's trauma. You got to fix
Yeah,
that.
that is.
And if you're imposing upon your partner these restrictions, you're isolating them, which
Yes.
is a bit of an abusive tactic to
Yep.
kind of control your partner.
Yeah. And they won't be happy. I think I had a client and she said something about a deal breaker is maybe, or red flag is when she's me chatting with a guy, just getting to know him, and it's like, okay, I'm going to send you a message on WhatsApp. And she said that's a red flag. And I'm like, why? Is that a red flag? She said, because all those third party messaging platforms makes it easier to cheat, because you can delete the messages, you can even use disappearing options, and just so where it's easy to hide cheating. So she said if you cannot send her a message through her phone, like normal message, she's not going to go move further with you. Why? Because her previous relationship, her partner cheated on her through WhatsApp.
Mm.
See that,
Well, and that kind of gets to the point of
eh?
at what point are these red flags helpful to you, and at what point are they holding you back? Because some red flags, for example, I had a client that said, at the end of the day, if he's playing video games, that's a massive red flag. Well, why is this a red flag? Well, my previous boyfriend beat me and he played video games. So all people that play video games would beat me. And it's like, no, that is a grotesque generalization of this of the population. And it's that moment of you have to be able to stop and think to yourself, is this red flag helping me that I'm looking for, or is this hurting me? And at what point should I just not go get some help to kind of overcome this previous trauma?
Hmm. Yeah, I think like I mentioned before, red flag is personal. It's different for different people. Even if you're working on yourself, I think it's very important normally to, if you know that, if for example someone will say some guys, because they were betrayed many times, they might hate women, right? So that's a you problem. You need to work on yourself and change, work with the therapy to help you change that mindset, right? But sometimes too, for example, let's say someone had an alcoholic boyfriend that was, being aggressive or whatever. Maybe you want to try to avoid someone like that. Maybe that, because that will always trigger you. Sometimes red flags helps you just it's like I don't want something similar to what I had before because I do not want to be the person I used to be. Like maybe when it triggers you, then you are lost, you're going crazy, you're going into medication, you're suicidal. So you're trying to avoid, so your red flag could be anything that reminds me of my past,
Hmm.
to some point while you're trying to heal. Well, that I always say just stay from relationship to start with what you're healing. But healing is a process. There's not like an end date to, okay, I'm fully healed, right? Because you might think you're fully healed and you can go into a relationship and you can be triggered. You'll be like, oh my God, it's like everything just came back again. So, but you're trying to say, now avoid the things. If the guy was an alcoholic and he showed some traits or some behaviors that wasn't comfortable with you, avoid people that are excessive drinkers, right? Avoid it. So maybe go for a guy that doesn't drink,
Well,
because then now gives you some kind of, it's preference, right? Like it's what would give you peace at some points. Like it gives you, it helps you heal faster or better. You
well,
know,
and so I had a friend who was married to a gentleman, and this gentleman was incredibly suicidal. In fact, he was so suicidal, he attempted a couple of times, and he ended up saying to her, or he ended up saying to me, that he was planning to off his wife and then himself. And I had to help his wife kind of get out of this situation into a bit of a safer one, which ended with the marriage kind of ending, full stop.
Mm,
And she had a bunch of trauma from this, particularly around men. And there's a moment of, I need to heal and take time, but I also understand that I still want a relationship. And her learning to navigate just those two dynamics was so fascinating to watch, because she ended up finding a gentleman, falling in love, and marrying this man, but she still had a bunch of trauma from her previous relationship that she had to work through and kind of be okay with.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it doesn't work for everybody. Some people, it's important that they take time off, but some people, it doesn't work for everybody. So while you're healing, you can still find someone. And that is when you choose between finding someone that would help, how do I say it, will help you heal faster, like someone that has the capacity to help you heal. You have to avoid things that would continue to take you back to that toxic, you know, past. So that is why it's so if because of that, because of your past experiences, you're very intentional about choosing someone now, because you'll be like, I don't want someone like suicidal. So like when someone is talking to you, I'm like, oh, I used to be suicidal, but now I've changed. Now, oh, avoid it. The fact that you said that the first time, just stay off it. You know what I'm saying? Because that would constantly remind you, maybe when they talk about it in conversation, even if they're not even attempting to, that might actually remind you of that. So you want to avoid that. You want someone that is secure, a secure person that maybe they are also in their healing journey, but they are secure, but that suicidal thing is not their thing, or they don't have that dark, or they don't have that mental thinking, or they don't have that issue, that trauma,
Mhm.
right? So that's the thing about to even manage. Basically, you're trying to protect yourself too, right? And yeah,
Well, and I think that's the crux of red flags. The job of a good red flag is to protect you
yeah.
from something,
Hmm.
whether that's an abusive relationship, whether that is severe mental trauma, or a lot of triggers that would bring out that mental trauma.
Yeah.
But I would also argue that when it comes to red flags, you should only have a handful of them. I would say if an individual is looking out for 10 or 20 different red flags in potential mates or partners, that's unhealthy. It's almost like that's keeping them from finding love.
Yeah, man, maybe they are the red flags too.
Right? At that point, it's like, are you the red flag?
Yeah, yes. If you have too many, I think it's always good to have standards, and it's always good to have those things. Those are important. But you get to a point where every single thing is red flag. Some people, everything you mention is red flag to them. This no. Then one, there's no man is perfect, no woman is perfect. So you have to understand at some point you're dating someone that is human at some point. And they're going to exhibit behaviors that maybe sometimes they're gonna get angry. So it will be crazy to say, I don't want an angry boyfriend. It's going to get angry.
We're human. They're gonna get angry.
right? So if it's going to, maybe it's angry and it's quiet. So you have to just learn to navigate, talk to each other, but you should also have the right to be expressive, right? In a healthy way. To be expressive, to be yourself. Does not have to be red flag. Everybody all we carry trauma no matter how we see it. It could be from your experiences, you could even get trauma from work, right? Like just trauma is it's there, right? But people are just better at managing theirs, they've worked on theirs. So it's like some people are single today because they just have all these unreasonable criteria that it's just so unreasonable, and that's why you're kind of single. And maybe you have a lot of red flags too. So it's always good to look inwardly. And basically, don't expect something. Like I said, if you say you don't want a partner that drinks, that's because you don't drink too. It's be unfair for you to be drinking and you say I don't want a drinking partner. You have to really want what you are, in a way. So if you're gonna say I don't want this man, then that should be something that you are. Like you're not, you want 6 figure guy, but you make sure that you're a 6 figure girl too, some point, right? Because then you would understand how challenging and difficult to make 6 figures to start with. So then you don't just, because people just feel like making money is like just plug in, go into your backyard and just, you have a money tree. But it takes a lot of effort for men. It's not easy. Like women, you can always marry a rich man or maybe whatever. It's not common, but you can use your looks. But for men, they probably have to work hard. And I know it's a man's what they say.
Well, there is a different societal standard for men than there
Men,
are for women. And what I find hilarious, and we're gonna get a little off topic, but we objectify women for their looks, but then we objectify men for their wallets.
yeah,
And I struggle with that quite a bit.
it's unfortunate. So it's unfortunate, but that's the world that we live in, right? And we tend to use, like men tend to use their money to get women or to get what they want. And women tend to use sometimes, and women tend to use their looks to get what they want, right? So that's how it works. But and that's why for a man when he's broke or he's very miserable, right? But that's why for woman she can do so much. She can spend much money, a lot of money for her to fix her nails or her makeup, and because that is what that's the society, right? So that's just the way it is. We can't we can't really do.
Well, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
However, you can always keep that in mind and
Mm-hmm.
then start vetting for people that don't conform to societal expectations.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I went on a date with a girl, and she was very clearly looking into my money status, my status in society, and my reputation. And how she did that in the date was she would ask me about, did I drive? What kind of car did I drive? What kind of vacation did I go on? Where
Yeah.
did I go? How did I get there? When I went home, where did I live? Did I live on the outskirts of the city or the interior of the city? And she was really trying to vet for my financial status, because if I had a car, that means I make enough to own a car. Is it a nice car? Vacation? What type of vacation? How much money did I have to splurge on a nice vacation or a small vacation? And it was very disturbing, to say the least. I didn't give her the time of day.
It's crazy. The thing is, social media is also making it worse because there's a lot of people out there saying, he has to do this, he has that. And even for the guys too, for the ladies too, she has to be this, she has to be that, she has to be this. For example, some like you could say, oh, a lady that talks like that or asks questions like that, well, she's a no-no for me, right? That could be a red flag for you. Don't try to say no for me, right? And for her, she's just trying to, she knows what she wants, maybe she knows what she's looking for, and she wants to ensure that before she move forward with you, you are fit into that criteria, like you, that person. And if you say, "Oh, I don't travel. Oh, traveling is so expensive for me," then that's like a no for her, right? So she's also trying to figure. She's trying not to waste. Sometimes some women are trying not to waste your time. They're just trying to figure it right in the first date, and know and move on or continue if possible. You
But
know
I
what I'm
feel
saying?
like that's missing the point of a first date, which is like, do I even like you? Do do we even are we even compatible on some degree, as opposed to, hey, so tell me one of your strengths and weaknesses. It feels just like a job interview at some of these first dates.
Yeah, it's not, and I think that's why a lot of people don't go beyond first dates, or they don't go with quality people, or they go with people that will just lie, right? I think there's always smart ways to ask those kind of questions, even if you want to ask about to know is how maybe if he has money or not. There's a way you can go about it, right? So when you just go direct, that shows like maybe you're coming with some kind of intention, like what is your intention in this relationship, right? But I think also I look at first dates as getting to know somebody and getting to know if they are so they use it's someone that is they fit into that that ideal man for you. Some people don't even know what they want really, but do
Most
they?
people don't. I would argue most people don't know what they want.
Yeah. So for example, a girl maybe she all she cares about is money, right? Maybe and that could be based on or based on her background, right? Maybe she was from a poor background and she doesn't want anything that will remind her of where she's coming from, a poverty, right? So for her, those questions are important. For a girl that maybe she grew up in a very good, parents they even left her inheritance and stuff, right? She doesn't really care about money, so she's asking about, oh, what's your those deeper questions, or maybe she cares about partying, and so it's just different people would ask different questions. So and I think first date is just that surface level conversation, really, to see if there is, if you like the person. You don't have to go deep, really, because you can have two or three more dates before you figure out. You can't figure out someone in one day, but maybe you can
No,
ask.
and that's something I've said to a lot of my clients, which is, yeah, you got rejected after the first date, but they don't know you. Like you spending an hour at a coffee shop says something about you, but not a whole lot. In order to truly understand somebody, you got to spend quite a bit of time with them, which is hilarious because I remember some people found out that I used to work with psychopaths and narcissists. And they would say, well, how do I figure out if the person I'm talking to is a psychopath? How do I figure out if they're a narcissist? And I would say to them, you got to spend time with them. The
Yeah,
more time you spend with them, the more those traits of those personality disorders will come out and you'll see them. And then you can say, okay, I don't want to be with this person.
yeah.
And it's the same thing with dating. If you, like an hour is really nothing. You don't really get to know who that person is by the end of that date. You get some idea, but not a whole lot.
And I think that's why it's called dating, right? Dating is just basically a way for you to kind of understand or know the person and figure out if the person is what you're looking for. That's dating. So if you look at dating as dating, not dating as marriage, right? Like, so at the point where you feel like, oh, I don't know, because maybe he says, oh, I'm a very gentle person, and then maybe something happened and he reacted so aggressive, like crazily aggressive. Then you'd be like, oh no, that's not what. But that you have to wait and be patient enough to get to that point before you can actually see that side of them, and it takes time. But some things that you can always do in the first day is, for example, if you want someone that is you want to marry, so like asking questions about money or finance. It's you maybe want someone that is a professional career wise, and maybe you don't want someone that is a trade person, right? And then you'd be like, oh, what do you do? I'm a carpenter, or I'm a mechanic, or I'm an electrician. Okay, sorry, no, that's not what I'm looking for, right? So that's the first date thing. I don't want to waste your time. I figure that out. Or maybe you don't want a single father with kids. Or were you previously married? Yes. Do you have kids? Yes. Oh, sorry. I don't want someone with kids. So that's the first date thing. Like figure that out in the first date, right? Things that no matter how long you spend with them, that will not change your decision. Like you don't want someone that have kids. Okay, that's what you don't want. That's it. Move on. So it's not that after 3 months now you don't tell the person, you know what? I thought I could actually fall in love with you. I'd never really liked anybody with kids, but along the way I couldn't fall in love with you. You wasted a person's time, knowing from the beginning that you don't want someone with kids. So first date is also something to check those things. Like, okay, what's your plan? Like, you could even ask, when it comes to marriage, how do you see marriage? You say, I don't want to ever get married, but you want to get married. They say, oh, then that's not something that I'm looking for. Right? So there are things you can also find out, because his decision may never change. Maybe you might think I'll make him fall in love with me, and then maybe he will change his mind. Sorry, it might never change his mind. So that's an example.
Well, and I would say if you're going to go into a date and you're going to treat it a little bit more like an interview, something to be aware of is you should have some cognitive flexibility.
Mhm.
So when we come back to, for example, red flags, you might have 5 red flags that you're looking for. Every successful relationship that I've ever seen all have one red flag in them.
Yep.
And it's recognizing, hey, is this something that we can overcome? Is this something that I can overlook based upon all these other attributes? Or is this something that, hey, is like a red line I cannot cross? Because I think a
Mhm.
lot of people get stuck on their standards and these red flags, and then they go on all these dates only to sift out vast swaths of the population. They say there's no good men out there or there's no good women out there. And it's like, well, there are. Your standards are just a little unrealistic.
And I feel like not everybody's meant to also go into relation. Not everybody's meant to marry, or some people may not ever, you know. But I also feel like there are some things that okay, there are some things that is core and important to you that you cannot, shake or tweak or compromise on. So those things should be your key things that you work on or whatever. But it's something like, oh, I want to be a city girl, I want to live in a city, and he wants to live in the countryside.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not
that's
going to
something
work.
that doesn't make sense, right? That's something that you can't really say, I'm not going to date him because he doesn't want to live in a city. With time, he could change his mind and say, baby, you know what? I've been thinking about living in the city. So those are things that you can compromise with. Things that will not affect your peace of mind, that would not affect you, will not disturb your life in any way. Those are things that you can be flexible about. Maybe you want someone that is a career ambitious person. But you want someone equally like that because you want to do great things with your partner. And if it's very laid back, I'm like, I believe that life is just for enjoyment. That's something that you need to pick on because that is just the way it is. And maybe it's a girl that is very laid back too, like him. So you know that okay, that's something I do not want, and move on. So those are things that would disturb your life if you're the one only working and is not doing much. That will stress you. That will give you a lot of stress. So avoid those things. So something that will not disturb your life in any way, like it won't really it's it won't it, you can say okay, I'm fine, doesn't matter. You move on. So I think that I would believe that you should compromise on maybe kids. Oh, there's no reason for you to say I want 3 kids. You say I want 3 kids, and they say I want 4. If there's not reason, like, if there's not big deal to why you can't go 4,
Well, and that's where you get into the idea of like compromising.
yeah. So that's
Can
compromise.
the two parties compromise?
Exactly.
Are you willing to make this work? Because it really doesn't matter if, for example, you don't want kids and he wants kids. If he's willing to compromise, maybe you could make that work.
I know
Or
if
if you want kids and he doesn't want kids, but you want 3 kids, and he's like, well, let's do 1 or 2 kids. It's like, is that acceptable?
yeah, I think that one is okay because one thing is you both want kids. So that is important. You both want kids, very important. But I know a friend where she dated this guy. The guy is a single father of 2. She's never been married before, no kids. And this guy does not want any more kids, which I can understand because he has 2 boys and he's already struggling with the kids between his ex-wife. So but this girl wants kids, but she says she doesn't want kids. I know it's
Mm.
a kind of insecurity kind of thing, but she said she would. So sometimes she would talk to us deeply and say, "You know what? I don't know if I can do this. I think I really want kids. When I see young, small, little kids, I just want my own kids." But she's in this relation. So the thing is, if I don't think you need to compromise with I want kids. There's a difference between maybe you both want kids, but it doesn't just happen, right? Maybe you have to go through IVF and different options. But the thing is, it is easy to go into those things knowing that both of you actually want kids. So you can give it what it takes. But when someone says, I don't want kids, kids is very important. You can't compromise. The ones you can compromise could be maybe I want 2 kids. I want 3. Oh, okay, I want 3. But you both have the same goal to have kids. But if it's I don't want kids, I want kids, you cannot in the long run, you will resent each other. One person will resent the other, because you're not truly happy. The girl is not truly happy, right?
Well, and this is why it's so important before you get out into the dating world that you understand what you're okay with and what you're not okay with.
Yeah.
Do you want kids? If the answer is yes, you have to find someone who wants kids. If you don't want kids, you have to find someone that don't you they
It's
yeah, it's like you have to find the things that are very important to you and then you have to vet for them. Else you get stuck in, for example, this woman's situation where she's in love with a guy that's not going to give her what she wants.
yeah. And I know someone that she told this guy, that she doesn't want kids. The guy wants kids. So the guy tried to see if he can, maybe talk her into wanting kids later. But so when she keep insisting I don't want kids, they broke up. But guess what? She remarried. She married and she asked for kids.
Hey.
So she went ahead. The lady that doesn't want kids now have 4 kids. What is it then? Sometimes some ladies could tell you they don't want something because they don't just like you. It's just the guy was not just a guy. She didn't see herself with him. Maybe long term. And when she met the guy, she got married this year. She had kid the next year. Like maybe she met someone that she sees herself with, she sees herself building life with, and she's like, okay. Or maybe along the way. But I feel like when I entered that situation, I knew that she doesn't really like him that much.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've seen it where individuals want children, but they just don't like their partner enough to have that child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another great example of this is many men do want to get married, but they won't marry their partner because they don't see a future with that partner. And because of that, they'll always dance around that issue of like, oh, when are we going to get married? Well,
Yeah, it's funny enough. It's crazy, but that is, you know, there's some guys who date for 7 years and they go, and then they'll find somebody next month and they'll marry the same year. And be like, what is wrong with me? But it's not about you, really. It's just that they don't just see their life with you. And so people will tend to create red flags too from something like that. They don't just like you. But why can't you just say from the beginning that, oh, I don't like you? And so they'll be hoping that maybe I'll fall in love with you, or maybe I'll get what I want from you. I don't know. But it's just a crazy way to look at dating. I don't believe in wasting people's time. I think just know what you want from the get-go. But life is not always that simple, right?
well, and that's where you have to do the legwork before you get out there, especially when you get older, to sit down and think, what am I looking for? But also recognize that you can't be too strict to what you're looking for, and you have to leave some room for flexibility. Also, what you end up doing is you go through hundreds of dates and you say, I can't find anybody. It's like, yeah, because I don't think they exist.
Unrealistic expectations sometimes, right? Yeah, that is always there. So it's like some things like I want a guy that is tall. Maybe it's that maybe that you see that is I will tell you that for me is not a realistic expectation. Why? Because nobody created themselves like I am 5'3". I was that's what I am. It's always good to have but sometimes your type may not be healthy for you. Your type may not be, but what is more important is the character, right? Like those things that you can't just go and I can okay, I might be this way. Maybe I want bigger what hips and what I can go do those things together. I can spend money on those things, right? Um but there are some things that is not very important, right? It will not really like being tall. Maybe you want someone they want to stretch to look at them or whatever. But what is more important when a guy is tall and is very abusive and terrible and dangerous, the height is nothing. But it could be maybe the shorter guy that will treat you like a queen and do whatever you want. He will do go places just to please you, and he will just marry you like that. But you're wasting your time with a 6 foot point tall guy that hardly take you out on dates, or it's not even so. So some things that is not very very important, but they're good to have, right? If I can get all these wonderful things that I want when it's tall, oh, that's a blessing, right? or is this? No, that's great. Or is that, some things is just like an add-on. it's
Well,
it's
and but that's the thing. You got to understand is like, okay, what is a red flag versus what is a preference? Like, I
yeah,
prefer to have
that's
somebody who's taller than me. I know for the guys' side of things, they're like, I prefer a woman who's slim. I would
mm,
prefer a woman who has a nice body.
mhm,
However, I also know for a fact that men are willing to put that aside or lower it if a woman has other qualities to them
mhm.
that they are specifically looking for. And they don't necessarily say, oh, just because you're fat and overweight means that's a red flag. No, they'll be like, oh, now that I got to know you, you have all these other qualities that I desire. And as a result, I would like to overlook this one superficial quality.
Yeah, I think when I work with my client, I always ask about their preferences, right? So those are preference. Your height, your your style. You want someone that's fat, skinny. Those are preferences, right? So the thing is, when you have those core things that you're looking for that is important to you, that will give you peace and give you joy in your life, then the other things, if you find someone that fits into your preference but have those things, amazing. But you can always walk around. They have these amazing core things that I want, or maybe they don't have. They're not 6'2", maybe they're just 6'5'9", but they are amazing people, right? They love God and all those things. But so that's the thing. So those preferences are, maybe you want to wake up to handsome man on your bed, every day. That's good. Maybe it doesn't have to be very handsome. It could just be a normal guy that but you guys could have beautiful children together, right? So, but those things are not very core. They're important, but not core. Like very, very like it will not affect you in any way, really. It will not affect your peace of mind. If you date a shorter guy, how would that affect your peace of mind? If it's giving you peace, like
Well, I think that's the thing most people should start looking for is can this person give me peace?
yeah, a joy.
And can we work together to create a peaceful life? Because let's be honest, if you're looking at long-term dating, so with my clients, I don't do short-term dating. I will only ever coach them if they ask me, hey, I would like to get married or looking for a serious long-term relationship, then I will coach them around that.
Yeah,
And the truth is, you're going to have turbulent times. You're going to have feelings maybe for somebody else. And it's like, how do you navigate all this? How do you keep in that committed relationship?
yeah. So yeah, similar to me as well. I only work with long term. I've seen people say, "Oh, I'm just looking for someone for a short time. My wife is in a different country." Someone I'm like, I know there's a lot of dating platforms out there that works for short term hookups. I don't do that because it's a waste of my time. To be frank with you, if I'm doing, I think maybe there is money there. I don't know, but it's like it's a waste of my time. Also, I'm not. I'm also trying to be a good reputation as well. I want something that is long lasting, that is beautiful and lovely. That I can be proud to attend the wedding and call them after like their first child and that be in that journey with them. It's beautiful, right? Um, yeah. So that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Which is so it's kind of interesting when we talk about long-term relationships. There are some red flags that I've noticed that men look for that are different than what women look for to kind of vet for long-term viability.
Yeah.
On your side of the world, what do you see from the women's side that they're looking for in their men that they're like, you know what, this is considered a red flag. We cannot cross.
I think from what I see or hear more often is more, I think, anger. Someone that can really deal with their emotions. Because normally, like just the anger factor, the anger thing is big, right? Because that will actually affect your peace in a way. So how do they handle emotions? So are they, no matter, because things will always happen, right? I think also red flag could be, and like I said, red flag is always different for different people. Laziness, maybe for example, you're an ambitious girl, you want to do big things in your life, and you're already doing that, and you want a partner that will come into your life to add to that. And so maybe you want someone that's ambitious, and if you have someone that is very laid back or he hasn't done much for himself and is not even interested in doing more, for her that could be a red flag. But for somebody else that maybe she doesn't really care about the money, but she wants a guy that at least can support her. So, so that money factor is there. So it depends on ambition or, lazy, versus that balance, right? Um, Family too, right? You're family oriented, right? Am I going to marry you? And you would not want my mom to come and spend time with me or visit, or does he see his family? Is he very close to his family, or does he hate his siblings? Those are the things that they look to, because, like I said, it depends. Some girls also want to date guys that maybe they don't have, maybe if it was previously married before, they would ask things like the wife has to be maybe dead or in jail or something like that. To me, I don't know. For me, I see those kind of ladies as red flag to me. Like, why won't you want the man to have good relationship with his children or with his ex-wife because of his kids? That shows a character problem for me. That's why I say it. Like, I don't see why
Well,
you
I
would.
know some women are very territorial when it comes to their man, and so the idea of their man being shared with another woman is a no-go. And again, it speaks to a little bit of insecurity
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, when you look at a relationship, it has to be built on trust. As I've said to many clients, I'm like, do you trust this person? And if they say no, then I say, can you learn to trust them? And if they say no, it's like, I'm sorry, you don't have a relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. So it varies. So those are some of the examples from a woman standpoint, right?
Mhm.
And the other things are not very, like, maybe it's substance abuse, right? It's a red flag for lots of people, because a lot of people are trying to be better. So even if they had that experience before, but they're trying to have a partner that can help them in that direction, even if they had that issue. So those kind of things are examples, I think. Some other things are superficial. It's just not very important, like height and all those other things. So I
I
don't. I
don't
want
even
to
think those
mention
are
that
red flags, to be honest.
that's not. It's just preferences. So, but some people kind of look at it as that. They say, "Oh, short people have aggression problems, or they're insecure, and that's why they won't. They kind of tag them some kind of character issue. So, and that's why I don't count that, because that's just your own kind of projection.
When I hear a lot of that kind of comments going on, like all short people are insecure with each other, I'm like, I think you've been spending too much time on the internet. You need to get out into the real world and start meeting people.
There's a lot of toxic things out there, like even projecting. Women just go for men that are they are making this money, that, even if you don't, it's a lot of toxic things out there, and a lot of people are defining their lives. And that's the thing, some people don't know, they're not solid enough, that anything they watch online, they kind of take those things in and kind of define their life from that point of view. Because someone said don't do this, oh, then I would not date someone. So that's just their own problems, that's just their own trauma they're projecting. But a lot of people are so lost to the point that they don't know who they are, and they tend to live somebody else's life. So by what they say on social media, oh, they're my mentor, they're my role model, right? So it's crazy, but it's, yeah. So from the main perspective, what is do you see as red flags from the main perspective?
I find this one very interesting. So when men talk about red flags, they don't talk about it as red flags, and they tend to be less versed and less skilled in language.
Mm.
So, for example, a lot of men factor in a woman's mental health, and you'll often hear the phrase, don't stick your dick in crazy. And the term crazy really means is that this person has a lot of mental health baggage and
Mm.
is mentally unstable. And so when I talk to men about red flags around that, I'm like, okay, how do you know? And so they can articulate this person is too spontaneous, they are partying all the time, they're hooking up with random people all the time, they are erratic at times, and they'll just kind of cloud it as this vague, they're crazy. And so it's so interesting. So one of the things that I know men vet for is mental stability. Are you mentally stable? And it makes a lot of sense. So when men look for a long-term relationship, they're really trying to figure out is okay, are you going to make my life peaceful? And will you stick around? Are you loyal? Because if I'm going to get married to you, that's a huge time investment from me and financial investment. And I don't want it to go to waste, which is one of the reasons that they look at body count. Because the idea in their mind is if you've slept with 200 to 300 guys and then we get married, the odds of you cheating on me are significantly higher. If you have multiple marriages and they haven't worked out, then I'm not going to get married to you because the odds of you divorcing me are significantly higher. It doesn't mean if it's true or not, but
Yeah.
what men are doing is they're playing the odds.
Okay, that's interesting.
So they're trying to figure out with themselves, they're going, is this woman going to ruin my life? And how I'm going to answer that is I'm going to look at how many partners do they have? How many male friends do they have? Um, are they mentally stable? And so that's really what they're vetting when they're looking at long-term relationships.
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's a good point of view, like looking at from the men's side and from the women's side. I think the mental stability is important, and I think because women tend to be very emotional, right? So women tend to be very emotional in relationship. They can get jealous, or they can, and a lot of men too would want to get away with whatever they are doing. Like maybe they are so irresponsible, but you want peace.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Like
like
I had a relationship where the girl that I was dating was very mentally unstable. She was very anxious and she had a bunch of anxiety because of previous relationships. And so when we got into fights, she became rather abusive towards me and would tear me apart. And it came to a point that almost 50% of our interactions were just conflict, constant conflict. And it's one of those things of you're not stable enough. You clearly have some work that you have to do, but I wouldn't marry you at this point because looking at it right now, I don't think our relationship's going to last long term.
because you're not going to bring as much joy into my life. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to see how men view, women or red flags, and because it's very different as well from with the way women view it. So I think that's pretty interesting. That's good. I think a lot of people will find this very interesting as well to see the past. But I think that's what I like about what we're doing because we tend to
One
bring
is like
different views.
a fabulous example of this is in conflict. I know many women that get very angry in conflict and they lash out and they hide it under the form of, I'm very emotional or I have hormones. That excuse for just being emotionally um, intense is the best word to describe it. And so that's one thing men look for is like, okay, you can be emotional, but are you able to regulate your emotions to a point that we can actually have a conversation, a dialogue about this without somebody throwing a knife at me?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, the fact is, women are naturally emotional and they go through these hormone changes. Yes. And, those are things that men would not really understand ever. Like, why would she have to be going through menstrual pain for every single month, right? Those are things that you can't explain, or maybe after even giving birth. And it is a lot of things going on. So men would never really understand it. There's no way they would. That's the thing because it's not. It's they are the women are the one. They can understand. Like, they can see you. They can understand it through you, but not fully because you're the one going through it, right? But now we can also say because okay, menstrual pain is different from cramp. Is different for different people. Some people don't feel pain at all. Some people they would cry for days, and some people it's just is different. So and that's why you can't really group people together. Like okay, this is how it is. Um, hormone is there, menopause, everything is there. So one is you have to, but now there's what they call healthy emotions and unhealthy emotions. Sometimes some women may not even know how they are reacting. They'll be like, they're just crazy. So at some point, I don't still believe in being abusive or destructive with your emotions. So which means when you get to the point where you're throwing knives, that's a crazy one. Or maybe you're constantly angry all the time, so you can it's communication. Like, babe, I'm at it again this month. Please just give me some space. And you work with each other, how you work around each other, right? You just help each other. You understand your partner. And you go down, okay, maybe a particular time of the month she's crazy. You know, so some things like that. Maybe when your husband is going through pressure from work, he's more quiet, doesn't want to interact. That is aim because he's going through some pressure and he doesn't want no pressure. You're understanding each other. So you understand that once a month your wife may have crazy, but the crazy is not destructive or anything. You know, it's manageable. You can manage it, right? But understand that your wife or your partner is not perfect. There's gonna be time that she's going to act irrational, like she's gonna go crazy. But regardless, there's you have that rule where no matter how upset we get, we don't say bad words. We don't curse on each other. You know, there's that guide or that rule in the home that no matter what, we're not aggressive to the point we're eating each other, right? So you tend to know that okay, you guys don't do that stuff. But I can be frustrated sometimes and scream like, "Oh my god!" You know, your man can be also frustrated sometimes and get angry. You know, that is human,
Well,
but
and
it's healthy
it's
way.
that it's allowing people to be human and embracing it, but also to be able to communicate. It's like,
Yes,
honey, I'm having a terrible time at work. I need some quiet time. Or,
yes,
honey, I'm currently on my period. I just need you to go away. Just
yeah,
clearly articulate what you need in the relationship. Because again, things are going to come up and you're going to have to overcome this together. But if
yeah.
you're throwing knives at each other,
I think
oh boy.
that's extreme. And the thing is, some people, because of their background, they may suck at communicating in a certain way. Some women just go quiet, right? Because but the point, like what I'm saying is, the point is this: healthy ways are always important, but there are some times that your partner is going to lash out, like it's going to go like those things. Give those allowance that once in a while, but healthy way. I don't believe in lashing out and breaking the TV or doing being aggressive. No, that those are extreme cases, but it shouldn't be too much. It should be like maybe my husband. Oh, 3 years ago we had a bad this thing, so he screamed on top of his voice. You know, the- so it's there are occasional times that it will happen like that, but when it's becoming too much now, it's like now don't give the excuse of more now because you're trying to just take advantage of that, or you're just using it as a tool to ruin my life. Whatever, there's some people are very manipulative in lot that they will say, oh, because I'm broke, that's why I'm just very mean. No, right? You're just mean. So
It's
those are
like I remember talking to a woman. She's like, "Yeah, I can be mean because I'm a Scorpio." I'm like,
so
"No, Susan, that's not how this works."
that's just an excuse. Oh, I'm Sagittarius, so that's why we are like this. Who came up with? So the thing is, like, it's just things that we just throw around, and I don't believe in you belong to kind of no. I don't believe in that. So that's an example. Like, stop taking. Don't use that as kind of like a manipulative tactic, right? To get your way. Even some people who use cramp as ways to just but just be let's be fair.
Yeah, just don't use don't use excuses to treat people poorly. I think
Exactly.
that's the moral of the story.
Period. That's the best way to summarize it. So just be kind.
Just be kind.
Yeah, just be kind. And I understand that some people may not know how to communicate correctly, but don't communicate. Okay, you rather, I would say, not every way is, I would say, rather be quiet than be destructive and be yelling because with quiet, you can think, right? But when you're yelling and you're breaking things, that's destructive to me. Before you figure out how to, they always say breathe in and out. Breathe in, that breathe in and out period is quiet. Figure out yourself. But at least choose a healthier way of handling conflict than a more destructive way. You
Well, I
know.
think this is a another podcast episode that we're gonna have to get into is how to
Yeah.
handle conflict in a healthy way.
Yeah, compared to yeah. So yeah, it's
I
been
love
a lovely, lovely conversation actually around red flags. Do you have any questions or any
You know,
add-on?
I think the best easiest thing to sum up this entire conversation is at the end of the day, just be kind to each other and don't use excuses to be awful and mean to others and just stay away from those that are looking to do you harm. Simple as
Yes.
that.
And yes, and know what we have realistic expectations and um red flags, like I said, is different for different people. And yeah, just be also open-minded as well. Don't be too, don't limit yourself too much with all your rules and stuff, but also be accommodating to know that people are different, and people give people the chance to also make mistakes and be human and be themselves, but also I'm not saying lower your standard, no, but have realistic standard and know what your core values, your core standard is, then you can always walk around the rest. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is a fabulous conversation. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank,
Cheers.
thank you guys. And don't forget to subscribe and like and all those fun stuff.